for medical or for general use fail to recognize that the greatest costs of marijuana are not related to its prohibition. They are the costs resulting from marijuana use itself. Marijuana is currently the leading cause of substance dependence other than alcohol in the U.S. In 2008, marijuana use accounted for 4.2 million of the 7 million people aged 12 or older classified with dependence on abuse or an illicit drug. This means that about 2/3 of Americans suffering from any substance use disorder are suffering from marijuana abuse or marijuana dependence. In 2015, about 4 million people in the United States used or were dependent on marijuana, and about 25% of those users found were teens. If the U.S. were to legalize marijuana, the number of marijuana users would increase. Today, there are 15.2 million current marijuana users in comparison to 129 million alcohol users and 70.9 million tobacco users. Though the number of marijuana users might not quickly climb to the current numbers for the alcohol and tobacco, if marijuana was legalized, the increase in users would be both large and rapid, with subsequent increases in addiction. The cost of legalizing marijuana would not only be financial, but new marijuana users would not be limited to adults if marijuana were legalized, just as regulations on alcohol and tobacco do not prevent use by youth. Rapidly accumulating new research shows that marijuana use is associated with increases in a range of serious mental and physical problems. Lack of public understanding on this relationship is undermining prevention efforts and adversely affecting the nation's youth and their families. Perhaps the oldest and most persistent argument against marijuana use is that it's a gateway drug, meaning although weed itself is beginning or not particularly harmful, it inexorably leads to harder substances like cocaine or heroin. The dangers of secondhand smoke from cigarettes are well publicized, so if common sense would just tell us that more widespread use of marijuana will increase the likelihood that other people would suffer from the same damage of inhaling smoke, and this time from a heavy drug. Public places such as bars would expose innocent patrons. Even though weed at home will allow the drug to make its way to others, especially if it's a multi-level apartment complex, the humorous stories about pot users having a horrible memory are not an urban legend. That is, it's simply put forward by everyone, from Hollywood films to treatment centers for addiction. In fact, one study has shown the blood vessels in the brain of a marijuana smoker experience restricted flow, which can continue after a month of abstinence. While tobacco and cigarettes have a nasty reputation for pumping carcinogens into the lungs, marijuana is estimated to have levels of carcinogens that are almost double of that from tobacco smoke. This is because many pot smokers tend to inhale more deeply than cigarette smokers, which increases the amount of time the lungs are being exposed to chemicals that cause cancer. Marijuana use raises the heart rate from 20 to 100% for up to 3 hours it has been smoked, increasing the risk of getting other health problems such as arrhythmia, heart palpitations, and a heart attack. The efforts on the cardiovascular system can make smoking weed a high-risk activity for seniors or for the people with cardiac conditions. Research has discovered a link between marijuana use and mental illnesses such as depression or sleep apnea. Though researchers are not sure yet if the drug really triggered such conditions or if smokers turned to the drug to medicate the symptoms on their own, but it's clear that smoking weed plays a role in the picture of mental health. Marijuana legalization supporters argue that weed is not as addictive as other harder drugs, such as cocaine, heroin, but addiction treatment specialists have seen firsthand that long-term use does lead to addiction. Research found that as many as a tenth of users have developed dependence over time. Like in other substances of abuse cases, stopping marijuana use will lead to withdrawal symptoms which range from anxiety to irritability. Considering that marijuana is a drug, which by definition changes the way the human body works, its use would lead users to experience a high that alters their precipitation while under influence. For instance, low to moderate doses distort perception that is enough to cause traffic accidents. In fact, studies show that weed is one of the most prevalent illegal drugs found in fatally injured and impaired drivers. So in conclusion, marijuana can harm a person's memory, and this impact can last for days or weeks after the immediate effects of the drug wear off. In one study, even a group of heavy